Got an HP DV6000 here. It's having some booting problems, some power problems. We plug the power adapter in. We're getting a blue light there on the end. And when we hit the power button, you count off 5 seconds, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. About every 20 seconds, the computer turns off and reboots. Now, there's no video on the screen. Only thing that we could tell is happening is the LEDs above the keyboard light up when you hit the power button. The fans go on, I believe, and then it just reboots. So, somewhat of a common problem on the DV6000 motherboard issue. So we already have a motherboard bought for this. We're going to replace the motherboard. So we pulled the battery out already, and we're just going to pull the RAM out and the wireless card. Just get all the components off of the motherboard because that's the part we're going to be replacing. Now we're going to pull the hard drive out. There's usually a little plastic tab that allows you to pull hard drives out easy. Now we're going to take the screws out of the computer that appear to be holding in the hinge cover plate, which is the next part I usually like to take off because it gives us access to the keyboard and the screen. And the DV6000 has a couple screws that hold the keyboard in as well. They have a little icon of a keyboard next to them. There's about 3 of them. And you can't get the keyboard out until you pull those out. And those are the 3 I'm pulling out now. Okay, and then I'm pulling out any possible screw that might be holding that hinge cover plate on. Any screw that's directly under the hinge cover plate that might be holding it on, I like to get out. We got to take these screws out anyway, so. Now these 2 screws in the back on the DV6000 are different size than the other ones, the ones I just showed you there. Most of the other case screws here are pretty much the same length, so we don't have to worry too much about putting the screws back because we know where they go. All the ones of these long length are holding in the covers here. And sometimes I like to do this just since I'm under the laptop here and I know I got to get to the motherboard. I'm just going to pull every screw out, including the ones that are under the hinge cover plate, but might as well get them all out now. Can't hurt. Once we think we have them all out, flip the laptop over, and then let's remove that hinge cover plate. DV6000s are tricky with the hinge cover plate because on the left-hand side, there's a couple cables that are holding it in. So it's nice if you can get the keyboard off first. You could have access to those cables, or ribbons, I'm sorry. See those 2 black ribbons are holding the hinge cover plate in, plus there's something that's, I believe, a speaker wire that's holding it down. So be very careful with these. They bend easy. If you bend them at more than a 90-degree angle, they might actually snap. And this orange piece of tape is holding the wireless antennas into the hole that goes through the case there. It brings them into the bottom of the computer. Pull that tape off, and then we could start peeling away the wires for the wireless card, which actually lead up into the screen. So let's see if we can get the hinge cover plate off now. Now that those 2 ribbon cables are loose, there's only one other cable holding it in, a thin little cable right there that I believe is a speaker cable or something of the sort. And then we just follow these wireless antenna along, till we get back to the screen. Now we're going to start taking the screen off, and we're going to want to take the LCD cable off that's holding the screen or giving power to the screen before we pull the screen off, which we will do. Okay, these screws I'm taking off now are just the covers of those hinges. There's two little screws holding the hinge covers on. And I'm taking out the touchpad ribbon cable there. Checking if there's any screws on the back of the computer that are holding the screen in. Now we're pulling out the LCD cable. Looks like I'm looking for the correct tool here to use. Sorry about the delay. Just getting a skinny screwdriver to pull off the hinge covers. It's actually not a huge deal if you get these little black covers off. They come off with the screen, so I might give up after a while to get them off. Looks like I am. As long as they're not blocking the screws for the screen, we might be able to leave them on there. And we're pulling up the LCD cable and detach that from the motherboard. So now the screen can freely come off. Now we're unscrewing the actual screen itself from the case. And the screen comes off. So we didn't have to take those little black covers off. Now we have some space to work. I love getting the screens off and out of the way because now we could work with a flat surface, not worry about scratching or damaging the screen. And now we're just going to start taking the screws off of the top cover here that appear to be holding the motherboard in and attaching the top cover to the bottom cover, which is going to be almost every screw that you see. Take that back cover panel off there. Gives us access to a couple more screws. And now we should be able to pull the top cover off of the bottom cover. Check if there's any screws that you missed. And once all the ribbon cables and speaker cables and every other cable is detached and all the screws are out, we'll be able to get the cover off. When you start pulling and you feel force, look for screws that are still holding it in.